Hear that sound like it's blasting or sparking in your heart center. And as the sound fades, all else parts and moves aside. And we draw deeper and deeper into our heart center. Here in this place, we await your presence, Father, Mother, God. We await your presence, Divine Mother and Holy Spirit of God. The presence of love, the love of God. We hear you, feel your presence here at the altar within us. And it's at this place that we offer up or sacrifice our old selves. Whatever part of our lives that we are absolutely committed to bidding farewell, whatever part of our past, our lives, our programming, limiting beliefs, now help us bring them to our minds. Divine Mother, bring them to our minds. What would you have us release today and at this phase in our life? Onto the altar, we place this thing with as little attachment as possible. We do this as unconditionally as possible. Onto the altar of love, our thoughts and beliefs that are not of God. And we ask that you lift these and disperse these into the nothingness, the powerlessness that they have. They are merely powerless against children of God. Made in your image, we are the power. We can say no to such things. We can say, get behind us, move aside, because with you, what else could we need? No such thing exists in your love, in your presence. We give thanks in advance that we've made room and now your Spirit can descend upon us, within us, just as it did upon Jesus himself. Your Spirit can descend upon us as it did the apostles and disciples, men and women, and of all walks of life and of all races. We're making the way clear for the second coming, the arousal, the arising of the Christ presence within us. And we ask that you be in charge of this awakening, this arousal of and arising of the movement, the Kundalini, your presence, your love, all names we would use for these things. It's really our remembrance. And we give thanks in advance that this begins to manifest throughout our life in every part of our being. And it changes how we see ourselves and how we see others, now in the eyes of love. And so it is.
Please join me in reading our mission statement, which you will find on the white cards in the seat backs in front of you. And together we say, the Global Center for Christ Consciousness is a spiritual center for students and masters on the spiritual path. We are dedicated to awakening the inner Christ and to creating a world of love, peace, joy, and abundance. And now for our sacred reading for today.
From White Eagle. When we dwell in thoughts of God, we are turning towards the inner light, the Christ light and power within our own heart, the seed of God in human form. If we endeavor to follow that light constantly, we will be allowing the magic of the Christ to work for us and in our lives, and we will flow more smoothly. He helps us to believe that each one of us, no matter what we are inclined to believe about ourselves, has that light within, that spirit which is always there to guide and uphold us, if we will turn to it. And so it is.
Thank you for being with us today. If it's your first time, all of us welcome you. And if you're watching online, first time or ongoing, we welcome you guys for being, we appreciate you being with us. As is typical, I ask, what is it you'd like me to talk about today? What's strong yearning, in your heart that would make a difference if you could hear me talking about these things?
Transcending worldliness.
Receptivity. Physical pain.
Dealing with family karma.
Hold on one sec. I'm sorry. Family karma and pain. Don't they just... Anyway. Isn't that redundant? Okay, what else?
The innocence of living in the moment.
Fear of abandonment.
Okay. Thank you. Very good. For the folks online, everything from family karma, receptivity, pain, living in the moment, the benefits of living in the moment, fear and abandonment, transcending worldliness, lots of topics. And sometimes people, it's great feedback, but some of you are so beautiful and you're like, God, I don't know how you just take these random topics and weave them together. Well, I'm brilliant. There's that. No. Do you know that if you offered me $1 million right now to tell you how many letters there are in the English alphabet, I have no idea. I don't. I mean it, seriously. If you ask me how many states there are in the United States, I have no idea. I could guess, but then you'd laugh because I'd be so far off. It's true. I don't know these things, but I know what needs to be known in any given moment. So how do I weave together these arbitrary words and not know how many letters in the English alphabet? This is God. This is what happens for us when we surrender. You don't have to be a trained, the members of the band, yes, playing all this complicated music, and only one of them knew how to read music. The Beatles did not know how to read music, and they seemed to do all right. Worldly knowledge, one of you asking about transcending worldliness. This world offers you nothing. It's not even here. It's a hologram. So how much could it offer you? Now, some people don't like me saying things like that because they worship the world. They think it's actually important, and it isn't. But I'm not saying hate the world. You're supposed to learn to be in the world, not of the world. You don't need to laugh at somebody who doesn't know the alphabet or how many letters there are in the alphabet. And yet I could start telling you right now, I could start speaking Gaelic to some degree. I could, if you gave me terminology in a different language, I could, out of the blue, it'll start downloading what you're said in another language. It's kind of strange, but in a good way. But I never sat around going, God, I would love to sacrifice 50% of my spiritual gifts to know the alphabet or how many letters are in the alphabet. It never occurred to me. I've never said, I should have read more newspapers. I never felt that. I've never read one, and I never will. I just don't, it's not my thing. And I don't mind if that's your thing. I don't mind. That's good. That's your thing. People should love what they love and be honest about it and enjoy what they love. If your thing is, whatever people, the human thing, the breakfast with the newspaper, I don't know. It never occurred to me. I never thought, I wish I had black ink all over my hands from reading newspapers. So in part, what I'm saying is, it's partly related to a question about transcending this. To transcend it, to ascend, to rise in consciousness, all of these powerful things we could think about. I want to know about ascension and so on. You cannot rise without dealing with the anchors that keep you from rising. Whatever your attachments are, your fears are. Again, asking about, relation to fear of abandonment. Right now, it's fear of abandonment. And don't worry, honey, because if you didn't have that, you'd have another one. Because on this planet, the ego is going to basically saddle you with something, some stuff, some unresolved past life, something to make you think you are lesser than God created you to be. It'll be your skin color, your gender, your age, I've dealt with this with some of you who say, I'm a teacher, but you're young and people don't respect, or you don't have credentials. Good. Jesus didn't have any, Buddha didn't have any, you're in good company. But those teachers said, but God tells me anything I need to know. And that's how I feel. That's not bragging, because I've also felt completely inept when I was in school and couldn't figure any of this out. So I'm not bragging it. I went through the pain of it. Why can't I, get this any further? I'd just be able to go so far. And then all of a sudden, it would just derail. Whether it was, English or math, I didn't take those classes in high school. My ingenuity was getting out of them. That's where I was brilliant. It wasn't about memorizing data and history. It was walking the corridors of school and finding ways to go in the office and manipulate the office to change my schedule, which was illegal. But I would find ways to get them to get me out of a class that I knew I didn't want or couldn't do. It's mad genius in a way, But that's all I knew. That I'm living in a world that I can't relate to. And so are most people listening to this kind of program. Now, some of you are like, no, I'm fairly, good. I've adapted and I've become a professional this and a licensed that. I think that's fantastic. But not everybody is going to feel that way. Some of you feel the pain of not having fit in. And I think it's a compliment, not a criticism. I do. God bless you for enduring. Blessed are, as Jesus puts it, blessed are you who are persecuted, etc. What he's saying in the Beatitudes, and the word beatitude, it means basically be this attitude. He's telling you, hey, listen, it's okay if people tease you and mess with you. You're the one who's awake. It's okay if your family thinks you're, an ugly duckling, bless you. You're an ugly duckling, or that you're a whipping post, or you're the black sheep. It's okay if your friends or society tells you this. And listen to this, because he's saying it's not true. Well, thanks for the, uplifting comments, Jesus. But you let your life continue just to be feeling heavy. And he's saying, no, you don't understand. I'm telling you, you have been made to think you're going crazy, but it's the people that told you you're going crazy that are crazy. You're actually waking up. You're actually more sane than the people that have the tests and programs and meters and measurements to prove how crazy you are. Well, no, because I'm a genius and I've created this gizmo and it can rate just how nuts you are. Do you believe in spirituality? A beloved friend of mine, goes to a therapist, finally breaks down and goes, and then, and in the questionnaire, do you hear voices? And she goes, doesn't everyone? I'm like, oh, I knew I should have gone with you. Doesn't everyone? And immediately, what happens on that paperwork? Nutso. Like, you hear voices. Oh my God. Now, mind you, hearing parts of me, and I can't control it or understand, sparks of neurons firing away, that can be clinically called unhealthy because I'm not feeling like I understand it or control it. Things are just happening out of my control. That's what they can call clinical. But they don't. They also call hearing the voice of God crazy. Seeing angels. I got called into Mother Superior's office when my kids went to Catholic school because nobody else would have them. And I got called into Mother Superior's office because, your daughter's, telling, and I think I mentioned this last week, but your daughter's telling, the kids that she can see angels. And I'm like, how bizarre. It's a church school. And I'm being told to make her stop talking about seeing angels. It's just like, So ludicrous. But that's this world. Transcending this world, you have to fall out of love with the garbage of this world. You have to fall out of love with the things that seem enticing, distracting, like other people's approval. If you don't see the valuelessness of the illusions of the world, you will not be able to rise into the true value of who you are. If you're still stuck on who they want you to be, how are you going to ascend into who you really are? If you can't let go of your, humanly worries and so forth, how are you going to rise into greater and greater knowing that everything's okay? So it's an interesting thing because you can't just snap the chalk line and go, I know exactly where I'm going. Yes, I'm ascending if you're still anchored down here. And so part of rising to a new level of consciousness comes from cutting those lines, those cords. Relationships that you're still waiting for the approval of, or somebody's apology, a parent that didn't apologize. You know what? You get to a point, honestly, you get to a point in your growth. If you're not there, great. If you're there, great. But at some point, we get to this point of, wait, oh my God, I feel free. I don't actually need their approval. I just feel like I got what I need. I'm awake. What if nobody wants to date you? Who cares? I mean, you're supposed to be interdependent. And once you get who you are, your beauty, your power, you feel like you can date anyone if that's what you chose to do because you're plugged in, you're here. There's a point, it's described in the Aquarian Gospel, but in some lost books, but the idea of Jesus and a women and attraction and partnership. And there's a great part in the Aquarian Gospel where he's deciding, he feels this moment of absolute deep love for somebody. And he's like, wow, what is this? I've passed every test, gone in every temple throughout every continent with different cultures and countries and philosophies, and I've passed all the tests. And this one's hitting me the hardest? Romance, attraction? And but he's saying, what is this about? And he's telling us, you should do that too. When something pulls you off, go, wait, what is that? I'm feeling really down because it's a holiday. And? Well, I wasn't invited to the family. And? Well, I wasn't included in the holiday feast. And? What's this about? I don't feel loved. Oh, and you thought they were going to give you that when you went to the holiday feast? They didn't do it last time. You're the turkey they're slicing up, man. Oh, sorry, but you played this role. They're not going to give that to you. Well, if only they would buy me flowers, then I would know that person loves me. Is that what it takes? Really? That's it? Well, I want somebody that tells me that they love me. Don't need anything. The greatest teachers explained God is your only real priority. And that sounds, to those of you who have past lives as nuns and priests, here we go again. Fine, yeah, I'm good. I'm going to marry Jesus. And, never have a snuggle, and so on, because I'm married to Jesus. I'm just religious. No, man, I'm not asking you to go to that extreme. You've done it and it didn't work out. God first doesn't mean you have to take vows away from the world. It's to change how you're in the world. God first means that when I look at people, I want to see God in them before I see their misbehavings. Doesn't mean I ignore the misbehavings. It's just that I say, I am absolutely committed to seeing the God in you. And since you're not committed to doing that, get away from me. It's okay to set boundaries. Get behind me, Satan. Move. This behavior is not okay. It's all right for you to say that. But don't believe that that's who they are, the misbehaving one. That's a commitment to God first. When you look at your checkbook and go, oh my God, immediately my whole vibe today, my whole happiness level has dropped because I looked at my checkbook. Now check this out. A checkbook It doesn't have the power to make you happy or sad. And yet you gave it that, which in the Bible and teachings such as that are calling those false idols. Why is your checkbook called a false idol? Because you think it has power over you. And the only thing that has power over you is God. And when your checkbook had affected you, it's a God. You see? Because only God has the power to affect you. So where are you going with this? How much will you allow this to take you off? Now, that doesn't mean that if your checkbook shows, 6, 7 digits, wow, I'm a millionaire, that you're automatically good. It doesn't mean that. We're talking about how you respond to these things. As long as there's right figures in there, I feel so good. Today I'm not sure if flowers, I feel so much better. I told you this story a couple times over the years, but these friends, there was, I think, 3 gals, and we went to a store. It was about 25 years ago. We went to this store, and in the entryway, they had this scale you stand on. And it'll tell you your weight, but it'll also tell you calories, how many you drop, and working out X number of minutes per day and X number of calories, and then you'll lose X amount of weight. It tells you all that. And we walked in, and they're like, let's do it. And so one of them got on, and so nice. I just need to lose 3 pounds, and I'm holy. So she got off, and then someone else, and then this one got on there, and she just, oh my God, this whole energy drop. And everybody was like, don't ask, okay, move away. What she didn't know is I had put my foot on the scale, and I told her, okay, a few days later. No. I told her immediately, and of course it's Michael, but how amazing. How amazing. 1 foot on the corner of that thing, and this person's whole confidence level descended into hell. And that's what we do. And 1 phone call. Some of you, you see a number on your phone. It's like, oh God, not them. The doctor who's sending you a message, I mean, look where our minds go. And we are told by the greatest, and we are told in studying and understanding Christ, awakening Christ consciousness, turn away from these things. At some point, break your addiction to these things. Walk away from the drink, but also walk away from your own head, your own thinking. But doubt starts to leak. Wait, I don't actually have to pursue that. Yeah, but what if? But who told you have to pursue that? Well, I don't want to be in denial. The scale's telling me I'm 40 pounds overweight. Oh my God, I don't know how I'm going to deal with that. I mean, when you're dead, you never go, oh man, that 40 pounds of light. I got to lose that 40 pounds of sparkling light. That never happens and occurs to anybody on the other side. And if it doesn't matter to you when you're there, why does it matter when you're here? Because you're stuck to this world. We're still listening to all this program about somebody telling us what we're supposed to look like. And then somebody out there goes, let's change the fashion to something else. Now you're supposed to look like this. Why? Because somebody's making money on making everybody look like that. And then they'll start adding, certain things into all the foods so that you gain weight because they want you to start to adapt to that. And it's whatever they want. Let's make it large elbows, So people are walking and they're building pec muscles just by trying to hold up their arms because they have large elbows. And now that becomes the fashion. Really? Is that what's important? Sorry, oh my God. And we're laughing, but that's good that you laugh because how ridiculous it is. Whoever told you, even family karma, none of this is true. But we believe we're here, so we have to deal with it. We do have to deal with some of these things. How do I know which things I have to deal with? Ask the Mother. Ask the Holy Spirit to help you look at only the things that are relevant for you today. You don't have to think about soul contracts or family karma or anything else unless that's what she puts in front of you. When she puts it in front of you, she'll know exactly the most efficient way for you to deal with it. If you decide what issues you have to work on any given day, You might be adding 100 times more work than you needed to actually do. But you love that too because you're addicted to perfectionism and overwork. Sometimes just, no, I'm good, you know. Wow. Today it feels like some family karma is happening. How do I know? Because there's a trend. It's synchronicities and things are showing up. Then maybe you're going to look at that. But let her put that in front of you. Don't go chasing down alleys looking for things to work on. The ego would have no end to that at all. Just know I'm going to work on whatever's in front of me. And that's also, I'm going to love what's in front of me. Okay, it's not all about work, it's about transcendence. And it's the same with physical pain, whether it's a tooth, whether it's a hip, whatever, physical pain or emotional pain. This too shall pass. This is not who you are. Now, we actually think, I would be absolutely so much better and happier if only I weren't in pain. That's a normal human response. But that's the human you talking, and you're not human. You just think you are. And your human self is run by your ego, which means it's your ego telling you, I would be happier if I had no pain. Financial pain, emotional pain, physical pain. That's not God's voice. God's voice is saying, you know what I would really like? Is for you to realize, say this in your prayer, not take me out of pain, take me out of financial lack. What I want you to pray is, show me how to feel your presence despite what I feel like and what I'm doing. See, that's mastery. Show me how to feel peace. See, Jesus is saying, call upon, like think in terms of ask first the kingdom. What's the kingdom? The consciousness of God. So, A Course in Miracles starts the book off with this concept of this course isn't going to change anything in your life more or less. Okay, it's not going to change anything in your life. It's just going to change the way you look at it. Well, how is that a selling point of a book? I would have never thought to start off one of my books going, this will do nothing for you whatsoever. Who has the courage to do that? Because he's saying it will not change what you want it to change. It won't change this thing here. And this is a tricky thing he's doing here. It's a mind game he plays. It won't change this. It's going to change the way you see it. But he didn't add, and when you change the way you see it, it will also change. Because he doesn't want to accidentally get you hooked on, okay, as long as it changes what I want changed, then I'll play the game. He wants you to have faith. In what? Like a religious faith? No. He wants you to actually start downloading the truth of God, that this has no real power over me. When I know that, it won't matter if I lose half a leg, I'll be at peace. It won't matter if my checkbook slams shut. It's okay. I'll be at peace. Things are going wonky in the world. This world is collapsing, which I've told you for decades that it was going to, and it's collapsing. It's all collapsing. We can pray that it doesn't collapse, and he's telling us that's not what I want you to pray for. What do I want you to pray for? Is to feel the presence of God. Why? So that you're just safer than others? That's a piece of it. But you know what God wants? God wants you to be able to walk the planet when everybody's going nuts and they still see a sign that God is. And you're the sign. Well, I don't really feel like the sign. I mean, I've got problems. Fine. But there's the person who can be the sign to say, I've got problems and I'm still singing. I've got problems and I can still smile. I can change the vibes of anything. I'm not in a partnership. I'm singing. I'm feeling radiant. Oh, someone must have met someone. Look, she's smiling. No, it's because I haven't met anyone that I'm still smiling. So fear of abandonment, all these concepts, pain, they're just distractions that are not coming from God. They're an attempt of the ego self that wants to stay separate from love and from God to make you believe this is who you are. That's all. That's as good as it gets. You're lucky you only have abandonment. You're lucky you only have pain. It could be far worse. Okay, I'm sorry. Then I'll just go ahead and hang on to barely getting by. I'm lucky to even be surviving at all. No, there's something has to flip. A switch has to flip that says, not I don't have these things. It's despite having these things, I still feel and call upon the peace of God. And then when you're walking the planet, there's a frequency you have. It doesn't mean you're perfect. It means that there's a frequency that's developing and it's building and building. And when you walk the world, people just sense there's something about you that's different. Some of them are going to go, and therefore I don't like you. Because there's something about you. Why don't you fuss the way we do? Why don't you gossip the way we do? Why don't you, et cetera, et cetera? And you don't. You know, how can you have faith in someone in your life when they don't get good grades or they have an addiction, or you're not being the presence of the Divine Mother if you're picking on people to change and become what you want them to be, and then you'll love them in return. The Divine Mother loves the divine no matter what the human is doing, because the human part is a test. Hey, look at me, right? If you stand up here and having a cigar, you guys are going to notice, wow, this is a sacred building and this guy's having a cigar right now. We strip naked and dance around the stage, you're going to be like, okay, wait, you know what? I didn't expect that. This is weird. You are being tested to believe what your senses tell you. And the mother is saying, you know, that's a funny thing. I don't notice the cigar that they're smoking. I don't notice the vulgar language coming out of that person's mouth. I don't really notice that they cut people off, they're rude on the road. It doesn't mean you're going out of your way to pretend these things aren't happening in this world. All you're doing is you're anchoring, you're centering into God and saying, help me to see it through your eyes. And through God's eyes, you won't see things the same. You don't hyper focus on the pain or the cigar or the striptease or whatever else is going on. They're tests. You should really want to pass those tests. And it's easy for you to say, well, I definitely passed this one test because this one person over here was talking about, they went through a test. I was like, oh, God, I don't know what's wrong with you. You're not very spiritual. That would have been easy because it's theirs. You've got your own, like picking on people that should be doing it better, like you. You missed your own test. When you go to get in the shower and you can't fit in the shower, it's a test. I'm serious. It's a test. And you just shift it. I'm feeling embarrassed. Oh my God. Why? Because my body is too wide. Is that what you notice? Where's your soul today? Where are you at? And it has nothing to do with this. You turn from hippie to hippie, You change your thinking about these things. They don't matter. If you lost your hair prematurely, if only I had kept my hair, what? You would ascend? It doesn't matter. I know it's easy to say. When we're in it, it's not so easy. It's easy to laugh at these things, but when you get legal paperwork in the mail, somebody divorcing you that you didn't imagine was divorcing you, it hurts. It's a test, though. I'm serious. These things are holograms. They're not actually happening. Then why do they seem like it? Because it's your way of finding out how much you've grown or not today. How do you know how much you've grown? Did you pass your test? Test sobriety. I'm clean and sober now for 1 day, for 1 year. It's been 10 years now. That's all a test. You haven't succumbed to the thing that was a temptation. Now you have to apply that everywhere else. I get tempted to judge somebody that cuts me off on the road, and we do. Most of us have reacted before we've even thought about it. It's not just a quick response. Love needs to be our first response, and it isn't yet. Why? There's something still attractive in the unconscious self instead of the conscious, awake self. We still have an addiction to being asleep and unconscious. Now, when you say that's a strong wording, I don't get that we're addicted. Listen, if it weren't true, it wouldn't be happening. Some part of us still thrives, thinks that we need to live that lowly life of consciousness. Well, if I didn't have financial issues, then people wouldn't sympathize with me. If I wasn't sick, people wouldn't feel sorry for me, or whatever it happens to be. I'm not saying these are always the thoughts behind these things. I'm just saying it's an example. If I wasn't homeless, da-da-da-da-da. If I wasn't emotionally distraught, You know, I mean, we actually like what we're getting from these things. There's an attraction to darkness, but it isn't God in us that's attracted to us, to it. It's our ego that feeds off of these things. And the ego's not going to say, beloved, I heard that you're on the spiritual path. I'll just be bowing out now. It doesn't work that way. It says, you what? Spiritual path? I'll show you spiritual path. And it'll put all kinds of nails on that path to make sure if you walk, you're going to get your foot punctured. If you drive, your tires are going to get punctured. It has no plan of letting you go, off the hook and letting you just become awakened. I use the metaphor a lot of chakras, but just as an example, up here, this is the kingdom of heaven. We left the kingdom and entered this place called the Garden of Eden. But in the Garden of Eden, we still failed our test. We still chose one tree to bite from the tree of judgment. We chose to judge ourselves instead of forgiving, which would have taken us. The other tree in the garden is called the tree of life. We could have dropped to the heart, to the Garden of Eden, which is like an ethereal realm, not spiritual purely, but ethereal. We could have gone to this place and said, wow, what an interesting thing that was. I dreamt that I could be separate from God, and it doesn't really make any sense. And I wake up by forgiving myself, letting myself off the hook. Now, does that sound like a favorable thing? Good. Do you do it every day? No. You can't even get past breakfast. Because there's a part that goes, I'm one with God. Om, you're oming in your bed. Om, the Mani Padme, thank you, God. Your sacred readings of the day. And you go to breakfast. I shouldn't be eating this. Oh, it's going to go straight to my hips. You're just eating from the tree of judgment already. Why don't you eat whatever and forgive yourself and go home? Take your naughty breakfast back to heaven with you. Just go, God, it's me, but guess what? I brought cheesecake. And God's going to be, may I have some? Because there's no judgment on it. It's love again. That's not what we do. What we do, judge, try to pretend we're not judging, hide the judge, anything but owning the judgment and surrendering it. No, it's not me. Well, I'm only judging because they said that's bad for breakfast. Studies have said. I didn't know that, but when I turn on the radio, I'm just a victim of what was on the news. And they said cheesecake is causing all kinds of cardiac arrests during breakfast for people. And you go into all these weird judgments. That's the tree of knowledge. What do they mean by knowledge? Judgment, opinions, the tree of opinions, judgments. We bit from it. Then you know what that did? It took us from living in the garden into the material world, where we have a physical, emotional, and intellectual self, the lower trinity, right? You've heard me talk about that a bit. But my point in part is this happened neurologically, this happened biologically, this happened anatomically. This didn't just happen like a spiritual once upon a time fable. This happened on every level. Even your relationships are a microcosm of what true love could be, and then it becomes not real love of God with another person. It becomes, we called it unconditional love, which is a really high level of love. Only in comparison to that. My body craves your body. Well, when you rise from my body craves your body to unconditional love, there's a big difference, isn't there? This is love. This isn't craving. That's down there. So instead, okay, unconditional love. But you know what? Unconditional love isn't all the way home either. Unconditional love implies that there's conditional love. When I go into God, there's just only love. There's not a high level of love, a low level of love. It's beyond human comprehension. But so on that level, romantically, this is the fall. Energetically, it happened on so many levels. Neurologically, even psychologically, it's happened on every level. Everything that happened on one level happened on every other level. So for example, when I go from oneness with God to the heart center to the human self, another level of that is once upon a time I was in the mind of God. And then I descended into my right mind, intuitive, imaginative mind, right brain. Got that? Right brain. Pretty cool. I'm still able to hear the voice of God. That's me living in Lemuria. Wow. I can still hear the voice of God. This is beautiful. Walking in the garden of love, man. Cool. I'm not totally home, but I am in a a reflection of home. It feels really good. But when I fall into the temptation to judge, something else happens. Now I drop into the next chakra, in human intellect. A Course in Miracles describes this as the moment we went from knowing God from an abstract mind, right brain, open, to linear, calculating, opinionated thinking. So the ego could not completely function when it dropped, because the ego is not part of God. When we dropped through the veil here into our hearts, the ego was born. Because in our hearts, we allowed those two trees, the trees of duality. We allowed ourselves to believe there could be something other than God, which is then the separation. So now we're in the garden, and the ego, the serpent, is at the tree baiting us. You know, hey, listen, what are you doing? Well, you know, you ought to eat from this tree. Yeah, but God said only eat from the tree of love. I know, but there's another tree. Why doesn't God want you to eat from that tree? Well, I don't know, but what? Come on. It might be tasting better than that. Why would God tell you, God must be greedy. God must be a selfish God. It doesn't want you to eat from that tree. Why would God even put it there? It's messing with you. You can't trust God. Let's go. Let's have a party. So we go and we eat from the tree of judgment. It says our eyes were opened. Do you know what those are? Your eyes of duality, not your eye of knowing. Your eyes of duality are open. Now you have opinions. And that's why it says then Adam and Eve were now aware that they were naked. They weren't aware of that before. You know why? Because they weren't naked. They were still ethereal beings. They didn't even have anything to dangle. You know? They didn't have anything that could, the thorns can scratch you, and they didn't have nothing to worry about, nothing to be embarrassed about. Oh, my hips. What hips? You're ethereal. But as soon as you ate from the tree, everything starts to become, I'm not looking like I did 10 years ago. Opinions and judgments. Oh, wrinkles. Because it said now Adam and Eve were given skins, which means bodies, skins. It didn't mean Tarzan skins. Yeah, God fashioned skins. I've got the whole universe to deal with, but no, I'm going to stitch you some animal skins. Try that on. It's a little tight. Well, who's been eating cheesecake for breakfast? It wasn't putting on animal skins. It was you became dense, densified, flesh. You were not that before you learned judgment. Is that making sense? Soak that in. Whether it's teachings, whether it's psychology, whether it's family, this is all the fears that we run from. God's trying to still commune with us and walk in the garden with us. But if you don't walk in your heart, you're not walking in the garden. Adam and Eve were cast out of the garden, not by God, but because they started judging. You can't live in the Garden of Eden or in heaven while judging. It doesn't make sense. But in the heart, it is different than heaven, because here you have to at least forgive yourself for having judged. And then when you did that, we splintered off and we went into, now we don't just have a mind that can receive God. Now it's more dualistic. We have a right brain that we can listen to in our hearts when we're being creative and so on. But there's another brain, the next chakra, the intellectual mind, the left brain. And this is also happening neurologically. Now I have a right brain and a left brain. Duality. If I'm excessively right-brained, I'm too spaced out. If I'm excessively left-brained, I'm too analytical and judgmental. So how do I deal with this? Well, if I was born with this one or that one, I just have to deal with it. No. There's something called whole brain, because neurologically you were once a whole being before you splintered off and splintered and fragmented and fragmented and fragmented. It's like fractals. And it just splintered off and splintered off. And fractals are like saying that you take a geometry and then it births another replica of itself, and then it just keeps doing that endlessly. One of the most evolved or high level is called the Mandelbrot set in geometry. And the Mandelbrot set kind of looks like a bug, like a ladybug, and then it just keeps breeding more of itself, and it's considered to be, mathematically speaking, it's an endless equation or whatever, It just keeps going. But sadly, that's us with judgments, and it just breeds more judgments, and it breeds more judgments. Resist not evil. What he's saying is, get into judgments, and they just breed more of themselves. But you see through these things, You're not trying to destroy geometry. You're not trying to destroy the planet. You start stepping back and realizing this is actually a hologram. That's why some people love things like ayahuasca and so forth, because, and even people going further with like acid, because it does show you this isn't real. Things are more ethereal than I thought. That's cool that it shows you that. But if you have to take a pill or a substance to get that, then you're still codependent on something outside. Paul McCartney summarized it very well when he said, doing acid is interesting because it does open your mind, but it's like taking an aspirin when you don't have a headache.
Yeah.
Do you understand what that means?
Yeah.
You can do that in here through love, through understanding, through forgiveness. Call in the presence of God. You don't think it doesn't work as fast. Is that what we're looking for? Quick fixes? So your fast food version of spirituality is not as through and through. It's a skim off the surface. You take something and you have a high and you're, wow, that's amazing. But you have to understand this. You have to integrate this thing. I would never want to think that I can't just surrender and become. I would never want to really think that something outside is what I need to let me have awakenings. I don't go back there and, use a bong or something and then come out, hey man, I got some heavy stuff to tell you. One of those times when McCartney did acid, he's in this party and he's going, I understand how everything works. And his roadie's like, what do you mean? He goes, write this down so I don't forget. What? Okay. McCartney says, I walked up and I went, there are 7 levels. And the guy wrote it. Next day, what did I tell you to write? There are 7 levels. He goes, I don't know what that means. He blew it. He didn't understand it. Should have had another hit. No. But do you see what happened? He saw through the veil. There are 7 chakras, 7 levels of consciousness, 7 initiations. It's brilliant. But all he knew was he said the words. He didn't even understand anything about them. And I'm not criticizing him. I'm saying this is what it's like to use surface level means to alter yourself. You have to make it integrate. Become whatever high you found. Even romantically. Oh man, nobody knows really what life is like until they found someone else to really speak to their heart and you just, Valentine together and whatever humans do when they pair up. All those things. But listen, Buddha is explaining this world is a place of suffering. Why? Because you think you're separate. You then go looking for things to help repair that separation, and those things will not remain forever. Therefore, those things leave, and then you will suffer. So it's not about suffering. Don't try to fix suffering, pain, physical, emotional. It's all rooted in the erroneous false belief that you're separate, and you're not. Okay, I am not separate. I'm going to start really, that helps. But remember, forgive yourself for believing you're separate and you just do them all at once. The belief, the compensation, the person leaving, the dying, I get it. Anytime I'm suffering on any level, it's because I believed something that wasn't true. How do I know that? Because the suffering isn't true. So it's parents, the suffering, its parents, that's the ego, makes me think that I'm flawed and then manifests the effects of being flawed. I'm aging, I'm financially strapped, or I came from a certain culture that this issue and that issue. None of those are true. In God, they're not true. On earth, they seem to be. But this is a lie. That's why Krishna says we're going to saddle up, we get 4 horses, and he rides his chariot. Although that sacred art is symbolic of something. When Krishna saddles up on the chariot or steps up onto the chariot, 4 horses. You know what those 4 horses are? His 4 lower chakras. You have to say, God be with me, I'm going in. And you go into this world. But you keep these things, your lower self, from controlling your day. Don't let its voice be the dominant voice. If you do, the horses have run wild and you'll fail. You'll be destroyed. And you'll come back again. To be able to say, no, not today. God be with me. stand on that chariot. Look at the beautiful art in Hinduism, like the glow on the face of Krishna. Did he ever look like, if only I had some food, if only I had a partner? No, he's just like glowing because he's into his divinity. He's owning Christ consciousness, Krishna consciousness, Christ consciousness. Now, I'm not saying that's easy because I know we slip, but try it. Try a day, only holy thoughts today. See how far you get. It's going to be fun, right? Like only holy thoughts. Well, I would have had holy thoughts if this would have fired up. If I didn't turn on the news can I just holy thoughts? Now, you won't succeed at that because succeeding would mean we're talking about perfectionism. What you need to do is forgive that you fail here and there. If you forgive failing here and there, you're in the light of God. It isn't by perfect behavior that you attain the light of God. It's can you step up and forgive yourself and others? I'm only going to see the light in others. What is she wearing? Oh my God. Oops. Forgive. And then something else. Oh, a study said. Turn on the news. Watch elections. And you're going to get triggered going one way or the other. It's ridiculous. But in closing, the concept of right brain and left brain, something's distracted me. I've gone from whole brain to right brain to left brain, and it runs my life. But the left brain is in the solar plex, which is also related to anger and rage and control. This is strong, my personal willpower. See, it's not allowing God. It's my personal willpower. It's me. I'm in control. Why do I need to think that and talk like that? Because I've lost track of what really is in control. My heart is to receive the guidance of God. Adam and Eve did well for a while. They were, guide us, God. But eventually they succumbed to, that other voice, the one that we succumb to all the time. I'm doing great. Ouch. Now I'm off. I'm doing great, but now I'm off. Things are going to happen in this world. One of you asked about living in the moment, and that's how it's done. It isn't about, I will live in the moment, perfectionism. It's, I will live in the back. I will live in the back. That's what it looks like. I'm serious. I know that spirituality has often been taught to be sounding so much like perfectionism. You have to attain, and you have to meditate 8,000 minutes a day, and so on and so on and so on. It has nothing to do with that. That's what people tried for thousands and tens of thousands and hundreds of thousands of years, millions of years, believe it or not. But the perfectionism, it doesn't work. Instead, it's about forgiving myself when I slip. You are going to slip. But again, look at how simple this can be. So he's just saying, you slip and you forgive. That doesn't mean the universe is ignorant or blind to the fact that you try to play this up. Kick somebody in the leg. Oops, my bad. Kick him again. There, I did it again. Look at me. Silly me. Forgive myself. Kick him again. You, on some level, know that's not appropriate because true repentance means I apologize, but I also make amends. I change it. I change the behavior. If you want to prove that you're living forgiveness, stop acting like an ass. Stop behaving like, and then thinking you can just throw it out like sometimes some religions, If you accept Jesus, then you're saved. Really? What if I'm a hitman? Well, I've accepted Jesus, so I'm good to go. I'll just put, instead of notches on my gun, I'll put little crosses because I'm spiritual now. That doesn't work. Sorry, that was a weird one, wasn't it? You're going to have fears of abandonment. You're going to feel anger. You're going to have family connections. You're going to have, karma. You're going to have soul contracts. All of these things are false gods. And if I stand here, I could literally put little thing in every chair. I could put one. There's family karma. There's soul contracts. There's inadequacy. Oh, then my chart, astrological chart, is squared this and that, and then this, and you could fill the room with all your issues. And yet, are you a human who dives into them and lets them beat you up? Which is actually a lot of movies depicted versions of hell, isn't it? They dive in, there's all these creepy things pulling at them and all those hell movies, you know? That sounds very similar, doesn't it? I have all my issues, I jump in and they all rip me up. Which means that's what you're doing. If you're those things of mine, you're living in hell with your own issues. But there's another way of doing this. Wow. This is so interesting standing here, a higher consciousness, having a bird's eye view of how this all works. Oh my God, look, it's a hologram. And those are all videotapes or CDs. Oh, I'm gonna play that one today. That's what we do. I'm gonna play that one. And wait, I don't have to. Why don't I try different CDs or DVDs? Why don't I try Love? Is that out there anywhere? No? Okay, let me go in here to find it. I just turn my eyes away from those voices, those creepy things that want to remind me how screwed up I am. Yeah, but what about, and I have a contract written 3 lifetimes ago. I know, whatever, don't care. Because in God, you don't exist. Understand that. In God, these things don't exist. Even if the karmic gods, Thoth and so forth, Hermes, they come to you and say, we've got records. They're only hired lawyers by the ego. The Akashic records that are used against you, they're just corrupt lawyers hired by the ego, go and prove that they're bad, naughty. And they come up they're very objective, according to the Akashic records, you did do a little, okay, 5 times in a day. It's all there. We have records. If you try to argue with the records, you will lose. You will lose. You can't win because the records prove you did do this, think that, feel that. But if you say, but I'm choosing the consciousness of God, then that means I'm identifying with me before any of this took place, which means all this is tossed out of court. Because I'm connected with God. Before you were, I am. Now, if you just say it, it's one thing. Learn to believe it and let the belief become the next thing, which is knowing. Saying it has to become believing it. Believing it has to become knowing it. You wouldn't be able to look at Jesus and say, now, wait a minute. 5 lifetimes ago, before you became all Christy, you did this. He's going to say, yeah, I remember that. That was kind of fun in the moment, but I don't relate to it now. What do you mean you don't relate to it? It happened. When? Well, 1,500,000 years ago. He's going to go, when? Well, it was, this is the date right there. It's stamped on the Akashic. He's going to go, that happened in time. Well, of course it happened in time. Time doesn't exist. Damn it, what do I do with that? How do I get guilt across to somebody who goes, sorry, man. Jesus, you're just crazy. No, I'm actually just awake. You're sitting there trying to convince me that I'm bad. You're crazy. Not because I'm judging you for trying to make me feel bad. I'm saying you literally are out of your mind when you're not in the mind of God. When your soul starts telling you the naughty things you've done. Now, mind you, I'm not saying don't ever work on inner stuff. Absolutely. I'm talking about whether you let it hook you into, I am the naughtiness. I did. It was in the past. The past doesn't exist. I'm good. That's how you have to process some of this. Maybe it takes a little longer than that, but process. Release the opinions of everyone but God, including your own. Let go, let God. What do you think that means? It's part of it right there. Let go of opinions and let God's come through. So it's the only one that matters. Our first priority needs to be God. Matter doesn't matter because matter is only matter. And matter just means temporary or temporarily visible. Release addiction and attachment to matter, and all of a sudden, nothing matters. Right? Nothing matters. There's a good mantra. Listen, nothing matters. Nothing matters. Nothing materializes. Because matter is only a reflection of how you feel inside, of what you believe you deserve inside, what you believe who you are and what you deserve. And matter is just a thing that matters, materializes. The more I start identifying with God and centering into God, matter changes to reflect my connectedness rather than my disconnectedness. So I really am in charge of my life in the sense that I can choose this or that voice. Back to my allowing my right brain to hear the voice of God, not just my left brain. And I'm not condemning the left brain. There's a time and place for it. I said it last week. You don't want a right-brained accountant. Let him organize the numbers and get them right. You know, it's like you don't want him going, well, who knows? Maybe, maybe not. You know, the IRS is an illusion after all. Stop paying them. They don't exist. You know, left brain. Let the left brain organize what the right brain is receiving. Let it organize it so you can anchor that light down into your life. If you don't, it runs rampant. It goes renegade, and it's all fear-based when it's running on its own, as anything would be. If it's not connected to God, of course it's going to be fear-based. So, you know, you just think in terms of, like, Jesus had a phrase, he that loses himself will gain everything, you know, whatever wording, you know, you think of. He who loses himself finds himself. But he's talking about me, even on a psychological basis. If you lose the self you think you are, you can gain the self that is of God. But if you love yourself, and a lot of people have a hard time with some of the things Jesus taught. If you love yourself, you will lose yourself. He's saying we shouldn't love ourselves. No, he's talking about your ego self. If you're attached to your old limiting beliefs, you're up creek. I'm just paraphrasing, but he gave me permission. Okay? Yeah, so thank you so much for listening, and I pray this is making good sense. I've said it many times. God is all that really matters. Don't sweat the petty stuff, as they say. Okay? Don't sweat the petty, and it's all petty stuff. It's all the material world. Relax. I'm not saying pretend it doesn't exist. Put gas in your car still. Take care of 3D things. But somewhere in here, just notice when you're putting gas in the car because you're afraid that you might have run out of gas, but you didn't. Fill it up and be at peace. You know, give thanks. Practice a mindset of gratitude. It's hard to be anxious and grateful at the same time. Gratitude kind of disperses that tension. Just relax. I don't know if I'll ever have a partner. Who cares? Doesn't matter. You're one with God. And what's nice is if you really center into that, you'll attract more and more people, friends, partners who are also of a similar vibe. Do you want to be in desperation mode and dial up dates? MutuallyDesperate.com. It doesn't really make sense. Why not GotItTogether.com? Oh, look, there's only 2 members. So ease up, but remember how complicated and profound it looks. In a way, you're almost only learning to treat yourself like a child, that if you had a child under your care. There's a lot of things you wouldn't do in your life if you had a child under your care that would witness this, and there is. It's you. Not just your own inner child, human child, there's a Christ child inside. So we should live a life that more feeds the nurturance, the awakening of that child, the Christ self. Agreed? All right, thank you. Please take a few centering breaths. Think back, look back on anything you heard today that made sense to you. Doesn't matter who said it. A book, a teacher, they're no different than a substance you take to go on a high. They're still out here. You have to take what you heard and draw it inside yourself. Let this be your awakening, not something someone said. If you were not ready to hear any of this, you wouldn't have heard it. So it must be that you're ready, and if you're ready, then you must be able to own this. So tune into anything that made sense and own it. This is the truth of God. But don't just say that to yourself. Allow your body to relax into it. Open your heart and your lungs and breathe the truth in. Mine. This is the truth of God that I'm drawing into myself. Any voices of doubt to the contrary, just say, not today. And with these levels of awareness that you're drawing in and owning for yourself, imagine you go out into the world, even just today, you go out into the world. How does it look when you bring it to the 3D world? Do your best to imagine that if you feel plugged in, how would it change people you interact with? How would it change your relation to them, your interaction with them, your comments, your words, defensiveness? Just try to see it differently. Don't judge it. Don't try to make it perfect. Just relax. If I integrated and applied the things we talked about today, my right brain that's capable of hearing the voice of God, spontaneous inspirations and intuitions, then that can channel down into my whole being, my human self included. And if that happened, what would my life be like? What if I didn't have all the intellectual stuff, mindset of other people? What if I didn't know how many letters there are in the alphabet? And yet I was at peace with it. What if I never again, or can't move on to a new type of partnership? How can I still be okay? Let me see that. Let me visualize that. Let me affirm that. I am as God created me, and I choose to be and will to be the Christ on earth. I am. It's not hoping. I am as God created me. I'm just choosing to recognize that, own that, and identify with that. All the other labels, it's okay for me to let them fall away. What's your IQ? What's your blood type? What's your Enneagram? What's your astrological sign? And keep going on and on. And they're beautiful. Some of them are very beautiful and helpful to some people. Just not dependent on these things to decide who you are. Just imagine for a minute more a life of peace. I don't just mean not war in the world. I'm talking about your heart center, your presence. I got it, and everything is okay. On this level, there is but the peace of God. Imagine religions around you scrambling to convince this and argue that and debate, and you just sit at peace. The world of medicine telling you the kinds of things you better worry about and watch for, and you just sit there with a smile. None of it matters. If I decide to go get blood work, I will, but I'll do it while at peace. If I get chemo, that doesn't decide whether I'm a good or bad person. I'm at peace, and then I decide. It doesn't matter if you prefer orange juice or lemon juice. You're at peace either way. And lastly, what if you represent a group by race, religion, height, weight? Imagine this. If you connect and identify with any other person or group, then it means that energetically, a change in you can automatically send a frequency of change for all of them. Could you be a woman who allows change in you right now, frequency-wise, for all other women? A man and change all other men? Any other labels? Diabetic, but I'm seeing it differently, and if I see it differently, I can download this to all diabetics. Don't be afraid of those labels. Change them. Be the change you want to see in the world. And then just hear and feel the gratitude from the group you represented. All people of this color, all people of that gender, all people of that political persuasion, and so on. You made a change for them. And it wasn't a change of you, it was the love of God that you called in. It's like doing grid work. And you're changing that whole group. And we're not looking for their gratitude, I'm saying, but allow yourself to feel it. Because those people, their lives will be lifted to some degree because you chose to stand with them and bring change. Of course they're grateful. Take a deep breath in. With your mouth closed, hum together for about a minute. Just keep going and feel this subtle hum. Whatever sound it is, just we're all vibrating together like bees in a honeycomb, creating this vibe. And we affirm to the entire universe, this humming is a sound, a frequency we send to all matter, giving it permission to change today. We don't decide how we need it to look, just permission to change because we're changing. The love of God is here in me, us, as it is in heaven. And all else is given permission to change now. Politics, ecology, economics, and so on. And more learn to reflect the light of God on earth. And so it is. Thank you. Just stretch out a little bit. Stretch into your body. Anchor all that light in. I really appreciate, your presence and your open-mindedness. Honestly, they're just, in a sense, you could say there's more of us here that exhibit open-mindedness and trust in each other and God, and anchoring it here at this center, it does it the whole world, just like you just did for a group you might identify with. But it's these changes that we're bringing, it changes the whole world and what it has to go through. There are some things that we have sent out, activated, karmic things, soul contracts, all those things, but as a race, things out that are coming back to us. I've told you before, I told you starting in July, I said, a year ago, half a year ago, starting in July, you'll start seeing a wave of collapse. Some big things are coming. And it did. There were some dramatic things that started in July. And that continues. And your job is not to get caught up in the good, bad, and the hate of it and fear of it. Your job is to be the presence of God wherever you go. Even when you think about events, come back Center in God and bring God's light to those events. Bring the presence of God everywhere you go. Tether that, like the old Johnny Appleseed, throughout the country, wandering and leaving seeds, and seeds of love it is in this case. So thank you. We're going to do our closing prayer in just a moment. We'll also do our collection. So if you can take your donation for today, we greatly appreciate it. Be as generous as you can be, but put your donation in the blue bags or purple bags that come around. And then any other donations, they go in the baskets. And those other donations are like for people of lesser means or sometimes special projects. The special project we're mainly working on right now, so last time I'll announce it, I announced it last week, is we need a new roof on the building. And if you live in Arizona, you know those are expensive. But the good news is it's not going to be like 40, 50, 60,000, which a roof this size could take. It'll probably be half that. It's looking good in that sense. So donations, whether it's a large check, whether it's several smaller checks or cash or whatever, we appreciate it. Just know we'll ask it this last time. Appreciate whatever you can do for that. All right? All right. You take your love offering, hold it to your heart with sincere consciousness and wording. Together, divine love flowing through me blesses and multiplies all that I am, all that I have, all that I give, and all that I receive. And so it is. Thank you. It'll take a minute or two for them to pass those around, then we'll do our closing prayer. Can anyone share what they learned or heard today that made the most sense, that could be applicable in your life? Yes?
Seek first the kingdom of God.
Seeking first the kingdom of God. Making God your first priority. Anyone else? Nothing matters. Nothing really matters. Anyone can see. Nothing really matters. To me. I'm sorry, the one in the back said? Gratitude. Yes. Self-forgiveness. Hold on. It's okay.
Back to the matter, you've given me a whole different perspective on my words when I say that doesn't matter to me. I've heard that before as, well, you don't even care.
Right.
But it doesn't matter. It doesn't materialize. It doesn't
Very
matter
good.
to me.
That's great. That's a deep insight. When you've said, in common language, well, that doesn't matter to me. Or, well, why aren't you mad about this? Because it doesn't matter. It means because it's not being given room to materialize as an issue for me. That's really what you're saying.
Yes.
Yes.
I can change my ego-based judgments by asking to see how God sees it.
You will change ego-based thoughts, feelings, judgments, reactions, actions by asking God to see as God sees. It automatically shifts who's running the projector room. It's like, wait, you're fired. Why? Because you keep playing horror movies.
Yes.
This is a family theater. Yes. You can't rise without dealing with the anchors that keep you from rising. That's why Jesus says you can only rise as far as you're willing to fall. Meaning, if you leave stuff down here you don't want to look at, not willing to fall, go down to this place, you can't rise. It's contingent one on the other. So again, matter. And we're not dissing matter. We're not dissing your things that upset you and concern you. What we're saying is we're all learning that it has no real power. When you think it does, it becomes a false god. Pure and simple. So again, you don't have to. You can sweat the petty stuff. But the more we awaken, we realize I can turn my eyes away from that. It doesn't matter to me. It doesn't resonate with me. I don't need that. Yeah, but yeah. What do you have to say? Turn to the voice of God as often as you can and keep it light. So, don't sweat the petty stuff and don't pet the sweaty stuff. Please stand. Nice. Closing on time today. I like that. Thank you so much. And thank you to our crew and our board and our sponsors and our, deeply appreciate you, our employees, our volunteers, our chaplains. We have a chaplain meeting immediately following the service, so we'll be going into that meeting room over there. But we have lots of ways of helping you if you need help. Free counseling, feedback readings to some degree. Just there's the chaplains can offer you, mini readings or help, intuitive help or guidance. We have as much as we can do here for free because we want folks to have these things available to them to change their lives. I know that there's a lot of things that could change your life that people sometimes can't afford. And that's this world trying to just dangle that carrot that you can't have. All you need is God. You don't need what these people claim to give you, even the politicians. What you need is only your connection with God, and then you'll be guided, to move forward to this and that, whatever else you need. I would rather die connected to God than live forever only dependent on everyone in this world to be what I want them to be or do what I need them to do. It's just, that's hell. That would be like living hell. So please be at peace. Be at peace. So nice to feel love and loved. Center into what's important. And before you leave the room, we'll do our prayer and just stand for a moment. But together, the light of God surrounds us. We are the light of God. The love of God enfolds us. We are the love of God. The power of God protects us. We are the power of God. And the presence of God watches over us. We are the presence of God. Wherever we go, God is, I am, we are, and so it is. Before you leave, one more minute, and that's it. Remember that there's crystal bed sessions available in the healing room outside, so you can call the office and set up an appointment for that. Thank you if you're joining us on social media. Just always remember, like the programs. It's helpful to somebody out there. We have the Daughters of Heaven conference. Absolutely get registered for that if you haven't already. That's in about a month, 30 days more or less. So it's 27th and 8th of September. We also have, we have this Wednesday, our spiritual mentoring counseling circle. You're welcome to join us Wednesday at 4 in this room here. It's kind of a nice therapeutic learning, as well as, you can learn how to do, but also sit and receive healing of different levels, physical, emotional, and so on. So it's very, very powerful. Read more about it online. This afternoon and every first Sunday of the month, we have the spiritual studies of the Bible and lost books of the Bible. So that's today. You can sign on. You can still sign up for that and go watch ones we've already done, but that's the first Sunday of every month, and that's today. And we will also join for the next hour or two. We do prayers each hour if you sign on for that. So that's available. It's we call it the monthly prayer circle with Christ and the Divine Mother, related to the prayers. And I think that's it with that. I just wanted to say one more time, and a lot of you already responded, which is very cool. My deep gratitude for the University of Metaphysics here in Sedona. They're one of our sponsors, actually, and have never asked for anything in return. But they're one of our sponsors. But decades before they became one of our sponsors, I've always loved them. Their energy, what they do, it's a great, just high integrity based on the teachings of Leon Masters, or Paul Leon Masters. And it's an accredited university. And they can give you degrees in metaphysics, theocentric psychology, holistic counseling, things that a lot of you would like to have pursued but didn't resonate because it was more mainstream. Well, they have spiritual versions of some of those things, which is, what more could you say? It's fantastic. So go to their website, but it's the University of Metaphysics and in Sedona. And there's some groups out there that sometimes, it's Michelle who's the director of this place, and they're just across the street, in fact. So make sure Michelle is the director to make sure you're in the right one, because some people have hijacked their identity online and, pretend to be them and represent what they teach and all that. So just be responsible. It's just like anything else you're doing. Just check it out. Make sure it's the right one. Okay? Michelle, and say hello to her if you connect with her. But thank you so much for being with us. God bless. Deep gratitude for each other. We're co-creating something fantastic here. Deeply appreciate you. Thank you. Bye-bye.